Hello everyone, welcome to this week's GT Sport Daily Race and Strategy Guide. A little bit later than usual, unfortunately, just due to the fact we didn't know what the car was going to be and a couple of sort of personal circumstances for me as well. But as the Red Bull X2019 that we're using, we'll get 5 laps of Circuit de la Sarthe or Le Mans to get round, tyre wear at times 5, fuel at times 1, just the racing hard tyres available. There's no mandatory rules in terms of tyres or pit stops. BOP is on, damage is off, it's a grid start with a false start check once again for the third week in a row, and slipstream is at real. So we've had this race before, it was on the medium tyres, albeit it's a little bit disappointing not using something else from Group X, but yeah, this race all boils down to the first half lap from what I can tell. Get the car off the line nicely, you must use traction control, it's essential that you do or the car just won't move at all, or worse than that you'll probably just spin out. I tried several different ways to get the car off the line, but I just found that using first gear and flooring it was as good as any other kind of start procedure. I just flick traction control off before I change into second gear, and it seems to get the car off the line, not too bad at all. After that you've then got the craziness of 20 X2019s diving into turn number 1 like a big angry hive of bees, and yeah, I've seen some footage of people's streams this morning and turn 1 looked like absolute chaos. So surviving it, easier said than done of course, but if you can get car off the line with the traction control and survive turn number 1, get down to the Mulsanne straight for the first time relatively intact, you should be in fairly good stead to get a decent result from this race. Once we're on to the Mulsanne straight, there's no strategy of course whatsoever to speak of. It won't come as a surprise, just with the hard tyres, times 5 tyre weight and no mandatory rules. Of course these cars easily can do the 5 laps without stopping. But yeah, this race will at that point then just become a very much a slipstream fest down towards the chicanes. You're going to have to deal with moves like this probably more often than you'd be like. I just thought I'd kind of add that move in there. I'd include that move here in the video for authenticity for this race, because yeah, you're going to have a lot of cars arriving down at the chicanes with much greater speed than they're used to because of the slipstream, and you're going to see people missing their braking points quite spectacularly, at least in the initial part of the week. But yeah, once you're onto the straights, it becomes a slipstream fest. It's all about just kind of maybe working with the cars around you, try not to lose too much time and letting other cars into the fold, and trying to basically get to the last lap and then sort things out there. If you can, get them sorted out before you come into the Porsche Curves here, because the dirty air coming through this section will be horrendous. Very easy to end up behind a car that's much slower than you through here because of the slipstream. They'll just pass you on the straight down to the Porsche Curves, and I can remember just how frustrating this race was last time, so disappointed to see this one. Like, once again, I think there was a much more there's a big category of Group X cars out there that could use something that's slightly different. Just taking a look at that tyre wear as we cross the line for lap number 5, you can see why it's no issue whatsoever. The car is rear limited, so it will use a little bit more rear tyre wear, so brake balance towards the front should help to alleviate that or kind of even out a little bit. I used -4 to the front. In terms of race time, we're looking at around about 17 minutes, so fairly short daily race C. I reckon if they maybe added an extra lap onto this, it'd probably make it a little bit fine to get into the next race, so that's why we are stuck with only the 5 laps. But yeah, that is it in a nutshell. Not a lot to report back on this one. Apologies once again for not getting the race out at my usual time. That was just due to the fact that nobody has worked out a way to work out what car we're going to be using from all the little bots that seem to be able to mine the information. So the first person that can kind of work that out is going to be a popular person within the community. But yeah, we'll just reiterate what we've already learnt there. So the first half lap of this race is crucial to your success. Get off the line nicely, survive turn number 1, and you should be in good stead to pick up a half decent result, as long as the drivers around you race you fairly sensible on the straights. It's very easy though for that not to happen. One other thing I should note, and this is extremely important, is that if you use a standard livery on the X2019, it will cost you 2 mph down the straights. That is not fake news, that is absolutely true. I promise hand on heart that I am not telling you a porky pie there, or just making sure that you don't use a standard livery. But yeah, as I said earlier on, a disappointing race. Group X has got lots of good cars out there. The Fittipaldi EF7, the Zonda R, there's a so many different cars we're going to use around here to make this race a little bit more interesting, a little bit different. You know, we've already had this race before, and then the fact they throw in no strategy whatsoever. I'm not entirely sure what's going on at PD. Has 3 races in a row, no strategy whatsoever. I have a bit of a theory that my pit crew may well have the Polyphony Digital team prisoner in their headquarters. The fact that we've not had to use our pit crew for 3 races in a week makes me think that they are kind of maybe pulling the strings, having far too much fun out there. And yeah, I'll try and get them back for next week, and hopefully strategy should become an element. But let's finish off the video with a lap guide around Circuit de la Sarthe in the Redbull X2019. Come down towards turn number 1 here. Make sure you don't drift too far to the left hand side. If you go over the white line here where you can see the kind of yellow and blue, you will pick up a half-second penalty. But your braking marker for turn number 1 is the first of the total boards on the right hand side. That's what I use. Down into second gear, careful with the throttles, you come through the second part of the chicane, careful with the track limits as well. Circuit de la Sarthe, notorious for its track limits. Just dropping it down to 4th gear here. I keep it in 4th gear because if you're on the throttle through this corner here, catch that curb on the inside, can unbalance the car. Just a drop down to 5th and just maybe drop around about 10 miles per hour into Tetra Rouge. Be careful on the exit. Obviously crossing the curb all the way over there can give you a penalty. Down for the first chicane, there's a photographer on the left hand side with a green jacket on. I use that as my braking reference. Be very, very careful of that curb there on the exit of the first chicane. If you accelerate on there, there's a very, very good chance you're going to spin out. 100 metre board is my reference for the second chicane. I found making sure you sacrifice a little bit of speed on the entry to get the speed on the exit was much better than trying to carry too much speed through the corner. Coming down to, what's this corner, Milzan. So the curb on the right hand side, you'll see the curb just kind of has got like a little bit of a sharp bend in it. Braking just before that. Full throttle all the way through the first part of Indianapolis. Wait till the car's nice and straight. Rattle down through the gears as quickly as you can. And you should be able to brake nice and late in time. I use that braking board up there. I think it's a 50 metre board up on the left hand side. But you do need to brake before that. That's the easiest corner on the track to run a little bit deep in Arnage. And if you get dirty tyres there, very hard to get this car moving. And now we're approaching the Porsche Curves. It's not quite full throttle. It is full throttle in the Super Formula cars. I did test them around here. They've been very nice to drive around here. You will need to kind of just bleed the power a little bit through here. You are full throttle through the second part. You can carry a lot of speed through the third part here. You will need to drop it to 6th gear for the 4th and 5th part here, and be careful on the exit of the 5th part of the Porsche Curves or you will pick up a penalty. Down towards the last 2 chicanes now. So a lot of people will brake as late as the kind of triangle there on the pit entry. I have to brake a little bit before that, down into 3rd gear and then down into 2nd gear, and abuse the curves as much as they will let you to pick up a decent lap time. We cross the line with a 3:21.5, not too bad a lap time. I think I've seen some of the fast guys getting into the 3:20s and probably the 3:19s with Slipstream. Hopefully we will pick up a little pace as the week progresses as well. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this race, I have to say, but we will live stream it at some point. We'll get stuck in, see what we can do. As I said, just disappointed that with the big selection of Group X cars out there, we're once again in the X2019. But hopefully the video has been helpful in some way, shape or form. If it has been, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.